Coming up on this episode.
So Christmas is here.
Don't spend all your time looking for money.
We're paying school fees for January.
Yes.
We're paying rent for January.
Whatever is left, pay yourself.
How can I start to save?
Get the money deducted out of source.
I can attribute, not remotely but directly, this growth to this position to being a member of the ICIFA and having done the qualifications.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you're watching from. This is the ICIFA Investment Show. My name is FA Rena Hicks, the host of the show, and today I am so thrilled, super thrilled, because as I said to my guest today, I've been stalking her for years. I love what she does, and I'm so excited to bring Patricia Kiwanuka and to introduce her to you. Patricia is, first of all, retired, I should first say, at the age of 40. And is about helping people manage their finances, but from a very interesting perspective. Money therapy is her focus. Patricia is a CFA charter holder. She's also a council member of ICIFA and is here on her professional basis as a financial analyst. And I want to give you a warm welcome, Patricia. Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you, Rena.
Yeah, so money therapy. What does money therapy mean?
We've come to find out that at any stage in your life, whether you have too little or too much money, it tends to cause you problems. And usually those problems are based on your behavior or how you actually interact with your money. And therefore, I took a time out to do psychology. And the whole idea is to try and combine my investment knowledge and the financial knowledge I have with the psychology knowledge and help people transition themselves into retirement happily and to live life fully. I think that's really the purpose of life, is to be able to enjoy your life. So don't spend all your time looking for money, but also don't live too largely and retire poor. So finding that right balance is where we focus on, and that's what money therapy is. It's about taking that pause out of your busy day to sit with an independent person and just talk about your money. It could be too little, it could be too much. But whatever it is, it's a problem that is bothering you.
Yeah. So it's interesting, psychology and behavior of, understanding behavioral finance, really.
Yes.
What's been the most surprising discovery for you as you've done psychology and the psychology of money?
I think the most surprising discovery for me personally was to figure out that your target for how much you will save keeps moving. Your dream keeps changing. Your plans keep moving. So if you put a target, say, even if you sit down and say, I want to make 10 million by the end of the year, when you get there, chances are you will move that target forward. So it's always like you're chasing a dream. And a lot of people call it the rat race. And for me, that was a real surprise that here I am in a corner office. I should really be at the happiest point in my life. And yet I was still chasing something. So taking that pause back, taking the time to reflect, even with my own life, I've then found there's a lot more to life than just making the money and making money work for you. So money should work for you. Money is an enabler. It is not the root of evil. It's just an enabler in life. Right.
Yeah. So what are we chasing? Like, what should we be chasing instead of this thing that we keep moving up ahead in terms of the goals that we have?
If I ask the same question to my mother, who's just turned 73, she'll probably tell me spirituality. But the reality is, as a human being, you are connected socially. You must be part of an ecosystem. You must be part of society. And that's what I think we look for, is the ability to leave a legacy, to make a change to people. So I tell people, I look at the 3 Ps. It's about people, possessions, and power.
Okay.
If you choose to chase the last 2, then you'll always have a problem. If you choose to help people, to touch people's lives, in whichever small way you can, you will live a more fulfilled life, irrespective of the money that you make.
That's fascinating. So in my goals, as I set my goals as an individual where money is concerned,
Yes.
I should begin with thinking through how I'm going to help others, even as I grow my wealth. But help me understand, how do you make the distinction, especially when you're in a situation where I'm not making ends meet? How am I thinking about other guys? I need to be able to pay school fees next term and to travel in December to my village where I come from. How do I start thinking about others before I've sorted out my, realm?
Okay. I'd like to use an example of a lady that I worked with. She was my house girl for a long time. And she had an ability to even adopt and take in people's children. And I always looked at her and wondered, at what point would I ever be able to adopt or afford. And her position was the opposite. As long as I'm giving, I will have enough to give. And that's a change in mentality. It's actually a shift in our perspective of how we do things. So people ask me, for example, we've run a school in Embu in the slum with about 40 children who've been eating. When I left the corporate job, my biggest fear was, would I be able to continue supporting that school? The reality is I've always made enough to be able to support that school. So for me, I think it's just a shift in saying, if I draw a pie chart of my assets, should I really have a portion? You can call it your tithe, you can call it your alms. If you're Muslim, you can call it, but there has to be some form of giving. If you're very focused on your own self and your money, it will never be enough because you will always want more of something.
Very true.
Right.
Very true. So then the other thing is concerning discipline. A question I get all the time is, how can I be disciplined when it comes to managing my finances? I know I need to live on less than what I make. I know I need to invest my money, but I just, I find I've bought that handbag, I've bought another pair of shoes, I've taken a trip to somewhere else. How can I be disciplined?
So I'll go back to old school learning. If you remember how our parents did it, you use the SACCOs. If money is deducted at source, either into the SACCO or to a personal pension scheme or into a unit trust, it means it doesn't get to you. I think one of the biggest challenges you always have in life is if money gets into your account and it's accessible to you or to your M-Pesa, you will use it. And that is not about training. Even I today, if I'm sitting here and suddenly, 15,000 shows up, I bet you I'll have a plan for tomorrow. Right now, because I don't have it, my plan for tomorrow is very relaxed. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch a movie, and I'm going to be with family. And that's the plan. So it's very tempting to spend money when you have it. And it's actually fun to spend money. I mean, that's the reality. You get some kick out of it. This is the psychology bit of it. It does release happiness in you when you buy something new, when you try a new shoe. But the question is, how many new shoes do you need? So for me, a discipline that I say is get the money deducted out of source. Hide it, if you can, in a bank that you can't access, in an ATM that you don't use. And then from there, it will actually accumulate and you can invest. One of the biggest surprises I get, to answer your earlier question again, is when people talk to me about investing, and when you ask them how much they've saved, there's no savings. Surely you must accumulate something to invest it first. Yeah.
Maybe you can just speak a little bit on that and why it's important for that, because it's critical. If you don't have even an emergency fund and you start putting your money in land, and investing in long-term, perhaps even risky opportunities, maybe you can just speak about that a little bit. Why is it important before you start thinking about investing to start thinking about saving?
I think savings is the first step for any investment process. So when you're looking at investments, you talk about three things. You must save, you must then invest it or grow it, and then finally you must distribute your money. And the saving process starts, of course, with your emergency fund. COVID has brought that to the fore, that it is possible to lose your job. It is possible to get unwell. It is possible to be at home. So that 6 month to 8 month cover of what your expenses are is extremely important, even for your own peace of mind. That's money you set aside, put in a fixed deposit, put it in a unit trust. Just let it be there and feel good about it. Then from there, you need to accumulate money now that you can actually deliberately grow. And the one thing I tell people is you buy the risk and the return. So if you're going to buy land and you want to speculate for high return, what you're also saying to me is you like the risk associated with the land. So in any investment you do, high risk, high return. It has to be a trade-off. And I think that need to quickly grow money tends to happen depending on life stages. If you're turning 30, if you're turning 35, if you're turning 40, there's some degree of peer pressure that you put on yourself that seems to say, I need to buy land now. Right. I need to buy a bigger house now. And that's what you need to manage, is that process, so that you can have a holistic view around your assets.
So let me give you a scenario. There's somebody who earns 100,000 shillings. They spend about 80,000. They only have about 20, maybe even 15,000 to save, which means to get 80,000 for 6 to 8 months will take them quite a while. So should they stop everything else and only focus on building the emergency fund to 6 to 8 months? What advice would you have to build that up?
I'd say start slowly.
Okay.
Even if that person said at 2,000 shillings, And with every either increment, so if salary is going to be increased, that 5% top up, divert it into the emergency fund. It's about slowly building and more importantly, understanding your expenses. It's very interesting, the example you gave, which typically may be a young person who's probably just had a family and a new home. If they've moved into a new house, and maybe the baby has just come in, which is some of the clients I talk to, it's okay to stay in that 2-bedroom house for a 2 to 3 year period. You don't have to feel the pressure to move to a bigger house, which translates to what? If your salary does increase, or if you're able to make any money on the side, you can then be able to divert that into the emergency fund before the child goes to school. So at every stage in life, you will find there's some expenses that you can rationalize. I think one of the things that COVID did very strongly for anyone is by forcing us to stay at home, it forced us to look at expenses. So things like my car. Do I need to use it all the time? Does it need a full tank? And people have had to have those conversations now, even as families. And I think it's not about getting to the 8th month, it's the discipline of starting the process. To me, it's a better discipline to do it that way than to go and buy a piece of land and get stuck paying debt. Because then you have a double jeopardy. If something goes wrong, you're stuck with land you can't sell, and you're stuck with debt that you must finance. And that's been one of the experiences that have been very terrible in the last 1 year for a lot of people.
So as you're building that emergency fund, just do it slowly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't be in a rush. You have a long time.
Okay. And then for somebody who's wondering, look, I this life I'm living, I'm already like I've genie mad and I'm barely making it. Now when you talk about investing, how can I do it? I have such a small income. How can I start to save consistently? And what do I need to do where my expenses are concerned? Because I mean, I'm not splurging, you know, I'm saving. I mean, I'm not spending much, but I'm not able to save how I'd like to.
So I'll use 2 examples on that. I think the first one I'll use is probably a more middle to upper middle class person.
Okay.
And you'll find for women especially, you'll find a lot of that splurging is on their children.
Yes.
They'll talk about their children, they'll talk about making memories for their children, they'll talk about taking them to more and more expensive schools. And there's nothing wrong with that. In theory, you do want the best for your child. However, if you don't also at the same time do some savings, there's going to be a conversation that says when they're going to high school, when they're going to university, can you still sustain the same life that you had promised them before? And that's why we're finding a lot of crises happening among adolescents at that age. Because suddenly you had put them in a very high cost school, and then for high school, you want to take me back into a government school, and I can't understand the shift. Now, I'll go back to the same house girl I spoke about. And the reason is because I think her story for me was very powerful. She watched me buy a house, and she said, I also want to buy a house. I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. But what she did is every month, when she'd work for me, the 2 days a week she'd work for me, she told me not to pay her. And every 6 months is when she'd come and collect her lump sum.
Wow.
And before we knew it, she had bought land, and she started building, and right now she's moved back home into her own house.
Wow.
To me, that's the story that says it's not about how much you earn. In fact, the more I've spoken to individuals, the more you listen to the lower income, they're more practical about their savings than a lot of employed people. And I think that's a challenge that I'd give to the youth today, is it's not about how much more you'll make. It's about the deliberateness of saving. If you can do it at 50 bob a day, do it. How else do they get the money for sport betting? It's not large monies. It's small monies that accumulate. And I think that's the challenge that we should give people, is money takes time, and you have time anyway. Before you die, you have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. So Christmas is here.
Yes.
And, you know, if people are like me, we all get caught up in the festivities and the fun, and we're out every other day. We're not cooking in our homes. We're eating out. We're buying presents and things. How would you, what advice would you have for somebody around this, you know, holiday season?
Well, first things, holiday is about family, so yes, you have to enjoy yourselves. Yeah. But remember, January is coming. Whatever happens, time moves. So the first advice, or what I had learned, and this it's called Lessons from My Mother, was number one, before the holiday kicked off, you had bought your books, they had been covered, you knew your uniform, and it was rather big usually because she expected you to get fatter during that period, and then the holiday could start. And there was also some very practical things like taking you either to an auntie's or taking you to your grandmother's. And those were ways for them to manage that expense by pooling of resources. So yes, it is okay to save for a holiday. I would say, why haven't you saved it for it from the beginning?
Right.
It is not an emergency that happened in December. December always happens.
Right.
But yes, do take the holiday. But if you can, the practical advice I'd say is please pay off your January bills, because what you're actually doing is using the money that should run January. Only difference is you've been paid a week or two in advance.
Yeah.
So, and that's when the conversations in January of 40 days or 130 days of January tends to happen, because you've used the money much earlier in advance.
Yeah. Okay, so this year we're going to, as soon as we get paid on the 18th or the 20th or 15th for some people whose offices close, we're paying school fees for January.
Yes.
We're paying rent for January.
Yes.
Putting money aside for the groceries in January, fuel for January.
Absolutely.
And then whatever is left, we can spend.
Whatever is left, pay yourself. And I'm half Ugandan. When I say pay yourself, it means what? Enjoy yourself, look good, enjoy the time with the family, make those memories. But remember, January will come. So it doesn't help to make memories and then in January, you're borrowing. So for me, I think December is a great time. But if you do it practically, it can make your life much easier come January, when you don't have to worry so much about all the other things happening. The other thing to add is, remember, the school holidays are a lot shorter this time. So January will be a lot sooner. You won't even have that space to save for money that we did before the schools open again. So it's very important that that plan on how you pay your school fees especially happens in advance. Yeah.
I love the other thing that you said, which is it's not an emergency.
Yes.
Christmas doesn't happen upon us suddenly.
Never.
So we need to start like a kind of a fund for Christmas, beginning
Absolutely.
January of, well, perhaps not January, maybe February, March, and start putting money aside.
Yes.
You know, towards saving for Christmas, which is really awesome. So Patricia, you know, despite the fact that it's been a very challenging season for many organizations, there's some that are thriving and are still doing well, you know. So for those people who are expecting a bonus, either in December or perhaps in the first quarter of next year, maybe even in January, what advice would you have for them for that bonus that they're going to receive?
I think the easy answer to that is almost do not touch it. Do not touch it over Christmas time. It wasn't the plan for it. You hadn't planned for it. You didn't know you were going to get it. I'd say set it aside. I'd almost say put it in a money market fund for even if it's 3 months. As you think through what exactly your plan is. Because you need to figure out, are you going to pay debts if you have debts? Are you going to buy an asset? You know, are you going to make it part of that holiday fund? And I like the way a number of women groups have been doing this. Even if you look at Facebook, you can see they've saved consistently through the year and then they take a holiday. I think that's a great way to do it because there's no pressure on any person to look for money at the very end. So I think for me, if you're getting a bonus or if you're like me and you're an entrepreneur and you've probably made some money that was unexpected or gotten paid in advance, don't be in a rush to spend it. It's been a hard month, it's been a hard year, but that doesn't mean we need to now suddenly let loose and just party. I think it's important that we run this through the cycle of time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, very important. You know, a lot of people have already planned for that bonus, by the way, are looking at catalogs. Which car am I going to get in advance of the bonus?
Yes.
So that's great advice. So as a money therapist, maybe you can just explain what exactly do you do and how can people reach you?
Okay, so this is a perfect setup for money therapy. You come and get your seat and you talk to me about your problem with money, whether it's too little or too much. The main difference between what I do and probably a normal therapy session is I don't have a number of sessions that you must do.
Okay.
So once you do your first session, usually I find clients will take even 6 months before they come back because they go and reflect on what we've talked about and where you need to be. Secondly is chamas. So we spend a lot of time with chamas just trying to realign the investment goals because as people settle, you start off as a young team, people get married, people get children at different paces. So just trying to align what the plans of the chamas are and try to tell them, you don't diversify by buying land in 47 counties, for example, We also deal with families a lot, just trying to get families to understand either where they are in terms of debt, if they need to manage their businesses differently, if they need to sell off land. Just aligning that without the emotions, for me, is very important. And then finally, I do a lot of corporate and strategy discussions around execution and what is failing. So for me, money therapy is that piece of behavior finance that just links what your plan is and what you're actually doing, just to get your execution better. Yes.
Wow. For somebody who's looking to reach you, you know, to come facilitate a family discussion on succession and exit, or it's a company that's looking to make use of some of the free cash that they have and they don't know, you know, we don't have any treasury management going on in our firm, how can they reach you?
Revenu Stream is a company that I'm founded and I'm working with, and we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, but also our website is there. So just take some time, look for me, look for Revenu Stream, and we'll be happy to have this conversation.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patricia. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this particular episode. We were looking at money therapy and behavioral finance, and looking at investment from a behavioral angle, and also looking at Christmas and what we should be doing in this holiday season. I've been talking to Patricia Kiwanuka, and we are now transitioning into knowing your FA. Who's this FA who has been in the industry for a very, very long time, who can inspire us and help us get to understand how can we grow in our career, and what are some of the things that they've learned along the journey that we can be inspired by. Enjoy.
I am currently the director of Morindat Institute of Oil and Gas, which is basically a position of a general manager at Kenya Pipeline, really top leadership management of Kenya Pipeline in terms of running the school. And I can attribute, not remotely, but directly, this growth to this position to being, one, a member of ICIFA and having done the qualifications. Let me give you the idea here. While I kept on, as I practiced my role as a lecturer at the university, doing research and consulting, I landed on a consulting opportunity at Kenya Pipeline, which they were establishing then a business development. So when I provided my CV and I say that I'm a qualified financial and investment analyst, they paused a little bit and said, these are the type of person we are looking for. So immediately out of that qualification, I was brought into Kenya Pipeline to be an analyst within their business development. Soon thereafter, the company was looking for somebody qualified in investment and finance to head their pension scheme, which is a big pension scheme, having a very big portfolio of assets. Then I was taken in to be the trust secretary and the CEO of the pension scheme, where I could now interact with matters of investment and finance, and dealing with fund managers, custodians, and all the stakeholders in the retirement benefits industry. So you can see the linkage between my academic background, my professional qualifications, and how it came to work in towards shaping my profession towards that. So I spent quite a number of years in the finance and in managing pension scheme of Kenya Pipeline, established a second one, and grew the portfolio. I think by the time I was leaving, we had an asset portfolio of around 12 billion Kenyan shillings. And then around 2016, there was an opportunity where the company was, of course, starting some other departments, and they needed somebody who could be able to run a school. Given my good experience, of course, as having been a lecturer at the university, my management skills, having run the finance and investment sector of pension schemes, it came in very handy to be able to take me to the position where I am at the moment, to be the director of Morindat Institute of Oil and Gas. And I cannot underrate the role played by my professional training in finance and investment. So to the people who are developing a career, one, it's not enough to just have academic qualifications. You always need to have a professional qualifications. And if you think you are in an area of financial services sector, capital market sector, ICIFA is an inevitable choice that you really have to follow to be able to shape your destiny. I think the story of ICIFA may not be complete without mentioning the fact that with the recognition of ICIFA by the Act of Parliament is a very fundamental thing. The IFA Act of 2015 is basically a turning round. And I participated passionately together with a team of people to make sure that we got the support of parliamentarians, the support of government to make sure that we had an act. And of course, we served ICIFA then on a very voluntary basis to make sure that we established this. And of course, for those who are developing a career, you will not be saying you are just joining a body that you don't know where it begins with. It's actually having an act of parliament. And of course, it's a regulatory body which will be able to regulate the professions in the industry and to be very good. And of course, that is how we came into it. And in 2015, it became a turning point when we had the ICIFA Act being enacted in Parliament. Now, and of course, it has seen the enrollment of the students, as you have seen. And again, out of that, I started with the Institute being, of course, a member. At some point, I was the treasurer, secretary in the committee, vice chairman, and eventually the chairman of the Institute. So do not underrate the humble beginnings of anything, including how ICIFA began small and where it has reached at the moment. As usual, it gives me great pleasure to talk about the story of ICIFA, because as we know, anytime we read history, we are also writing history, and I think ICIFA has written its own good history, which is actually contributed by quite a number of people, and I'm glad that you are noting that I'm one of the contributors of this good story that people are reading as we write the origin and the growth of ICIFA. Now, just to give you a little bit of a background, the idea of choosing to be a financial analyst began way back when I was a university lecturer, commonly known as Don. I was then a lecturer at Catholic University in around 1999-98, and of course we met as a group of lecturers and said that we needed to start a specialization in Bachelor of Commerce where students could graduate with BCom with specialization in finance. Then the common specialization was BCom marketing, BCom accounting, but then we felt that there is need in the market to have a specialization of BCom finance. And out of that challenge, the students and us as members of faculty felt that these graduates will not have a professional line to follow. So we started by saying we need to come up with a professional body that can be able to onboard the graduates just like their counterparts in accounting specialization, so that at least they can also be part of the body. So when we looked around, we said we need to, first of all, as lecturers, undertake the examinations. So we encourage ourselves and enroll to the then AFA examinations, East Africa, AFA, Eastern Africa, which is the original name of ICIFA that we are now dealing with. So we did the AFA examinations. That is quite a number of us. I think we are around 30 then, or 20 something. And one person that comes out strongly in my mind is Peter Gigi, because he was my colleague at the university and we sat through the examinations. And luckily, upon completion, I think in 2001, we are the first two graduates to have gotten the qualifications of that course of the ICIFA now. Wow. So we became the first two graduates of this qualification, which was a very, very encouraging thing. Yeah. It actually brought my profile to a better place, because whenever I could meet my colleagues, you could say, yes, we have the right to run finance because we are qualified, but not only because of the degree graduates that we've pursued, but also professionally. So out of that now, we were even able to get recognized by the examination body, that is CASNEP. They started inviting myself and Ngigi to participate in the process of moderating and developing examinations for this course. And that's how the journey began. It was a very humble beginning. And of course, we didn't know that one day it will be a big institute as it is. But now all the students specializing in finance and investment as a home in form of ICIFA to be able to have their professional journey. So it all began from that time. I mean, immediately after that, of course, I think I was given an opportunity to be the deputy head of department. I guess because I was a professionally qualified person then at the university. And of course, I started participating in examinations in CASNEP, in finance and investment related courses. So you see how it shaped my life when I moved from just being a graduate with a degree and a master's degree. This came as a very, very added advantage. Yeah, it's good to mention that the job that we deal with can be very, very demanding. So that many a times you are awake at 5 a.m., you stretch sometimes to very late in the evenings. And it reached a point where I made a deliberate effort. I don't know whether it was an hobby or a deliberate effort to look for something that could keep me away from the computer analysis, managing and dealing with people. And I chose to start playing golf. So now I can say competently that I'm a golfer. So I do play golf occasionally once in a week, sometimes twice in a week, and at least it gives me an opportunity to reflect for a period of around 2 hours in the golf course or 4 hours in the golf course, and it gives me a lot of it. The other thing that I do is that I like reading some history of places, biographies, so I spend a lot of time trying to get how people who have shaped the world, people like Colin Powell, how did he come up to being a soldier and contributing to management, such like things. So I spend some time doing that, and of course I have a passion staying with young ones. So occasionally over the weekend, because basically my children are fairly, I think some of the younger one is in teenagehood, so I call friends who have young children to bring to me so that I can sit with them, and it gives me a lot of gratification to just sit and enjoy and see them growing and molding them, advising them, and that's all about my life basically.
Thank you so much for watching. On this particular show, we take time to help you understand different investment products and how you can invest in them, as well as get to know the different professionals that exist as financial analysts under ICIFA. It is the ICIFA Investment Show. Please subscribe. Do you see that red button right there with white written subscribe? Click on it and share this video so that we can all learn and grow together. Have a fantastic day. Take care.